Hello everybody, this is Bird Brain. We're here, we are nerdy for the birdies. So the Philadelphia Eagles schedule has just officially dropped. We now know when the Eagles are playing these opponents. We've known the opponents since the season's ended, but now we know when all the games are going to be. So today we're going to break down the Eagles schedule, and we're not going to break it down in terms of matchups and key things like that, because the fact of the matter is we really don't know everything we need to know about that yet. We're not anywhere close to being at that point. What we're looking at is really looking at the games themselves, when they're played, elements to think about the game. For example, weather and time, what your opponents are doing the week before the game, what you're doing the week before the game. So before we get into the games themselves, I want to give off some observations for the schedule. The first thing I notice is that there are absolutely at no point in time this season back-to-back home games. Week 1, 3, 5, 8, 11, 13, 15, and 18 are the only weeks of the season that you have a home game, and none of those are back-to-back. You have 2 points where you have back-to-back away games, weeks 6 and 7, and then weeks 16 and 17, so 10 weeks apart. You have back-to-back away games. You don't have any back-to-back home games, though, which is rather interesting with the way the schedule is set up this year. The next thing is you have 6 primetime games, and you play on 5 different days of the week in the schedule. So you have obviously the opening night game on a Thursday. You have another Thursday night game, which is the true Thursday night broadcast. You have 2 Monday night football games. You have a Sunday night football game, and then you're also the Black Friday game. So that's 6 primetime games, tied for second. The Chiefs somehow got 7. I thought you can only have up to 6, but I guess they've changed that rule. So, yeah, I mean, this is what happens when you win the Super Bowl. People want to watch you, and this is one of the most popular markets in the league. You only have a handful of 1 o'clock games, and most of them are in the first half of the year. You only have 1 in the second half. But anyway, the other last thing is that I would say there's ebbs and flows in the schedule. Like, in terms of the opponents that you play at certain times. You know, there's times where you have a bunch of guys that are grouped up together that are a little tougher, and then there's kind of points where the season calms down a little bit, and then it gets tougher again, and then it calms down, and then it gets tough. So, let's get into the actual games now. So, week 1, you take on Dallas as the season opening game. It's typical tradition that if you win the Super Bowl, you host the first game of the year. So, obviously, Eagles-Cowboys will be the game to kick it off. And the biggest thing here about this game is just questioning about week 1 rust. You know, are these teams going to be ready for week 1? Neither of these teams tend to be, teams that play a lot of their starters in the preseason. We'll see if that changes for the Eagles this year. So, likelihood the first time that, most of the starters on this team are taking significant snaps, it is going to be week 1. There's also a question about rust for somebody like Dak. He's coming off of his injury last year. How ready is he going to be to play after not, playing football for, over a year? Trayvon Diggs is probably not going to play in this game. He's dealing with his injury, so he'll be out for a bit. So you're probably not going to see him as well. And another thing is you have significant coaching changes for both teams, that their first games are going to be against each other. Dallas obviously has a new head coach, and Philly has a new OC. So it's going to be interesting, especially on the offensive side of things for both teams, how these two teams look week 1, how they're prepared week 1, and how the game goes. Usually week 1 tends to be a little bumpy. Last year it wasn't the smoothest game for the Eagles, but things got better, and it tends to more or less be that way. Then you get to play the Chiefs the following Sunday in week 2. So the good news for the Eagles is you get your first mini bye, and there's a lot of these little mini buys in the schedule because you have so many primetime games. You get your first mini bye because you're playing a Thursday to a Sunday, so now you get a couple extra days off. Both teams in this game are coming off mini buys because the Chiefs will be playing in Brazil, which is interesting because how are they going to feel coming back from Brazil? That was going to Brazil, this team did it last year. It's a whole lot of, it's time difference. It's a lot of different things there. So it'll be interesting to see how prepared they are. Obviously, people talk about Andy Reid off of a bye week. obviously this is the Super Bowl rematch, and everyone's going to be talking about that angle of the game. I'm very surprised they're playing this game this early in the season. I figured they'd save it a little bit, but it'll be very interesting to see how these two teams look coming off of this rematch from the playoffs. And speaking of playoff rematches, we move to week 3 where the Eagles face the Rams. Another playoff rematch. This is one of your 1 o'clock games. I'm kind of surprised this is a 1 o'clock game, honestly, given that this was a playoff matchup and this was like a pretty big game last year. But the biggest things about this game is obviously the Rams have some new pieces on their offense. They've lost, Cooper Kupp. They've added Devontae Adams. Will he be more established with the offense at that point? And obviously, can the Rams stop Saquon? That was the big thing, last time. Saquon got 200 yards against the Rams twice last year. So, if they can stop Saquon, then it'll be a very interesting game. If they still can't, it'll be interesting to see what they do. Not a lot to talk about with this matchup, just a typical 1 o'clock game. Then you go down to Tampa, and this is why I think scheduling matters. You remember last year we played Tampa week 4. It was hot. It was roughly 100 degrees, I think, in that game, and you could clearly tell one team was better prepared for it than another. Well, guess what? 2 years in a row now you're going to play in Tampa, and it's going to be probably the same temperature, and you're the road team. So you better buckle up for that game. Drink plenty of water. Drink pickle juice if you have to. Tampa's been a bad matchup for Philly. They've played each other a few times over the last few years, and Philly's only won once, so who knows? But this is an early game. It's gonna be hot. Again, are they gonna be better prepared to handle the heat than they were last year? Philly gets hot too, but not in the same regard as Tampa. It's completely different down there. Then you come home, and you play the Broncos week 5, and you get to see two of last year's best defenses face each other. You get to see a defensive player of the year going up against a potential defensive player of the year runner-up. You've got lots of stars defensively for both of these squads, and it's going to be fun to see those two sides get at it. Is this another Vic Fangio revenge game where, he used to coach the Broncos, now he gets to face them again? It's the second time he will have faced them since he was fired, because he was with the Dolphins when they had the 70 burger against the Broncos. Obviously, his defense that day held them to 13 points. We'll see how far Bo Nix has developed, what second-year Bo Nix looks like. I was really impressed with what he did as a rookie. And the big thing, too, is the Denver has a short week. I believe they have a primetime game or something coming into this. I think they play Monday night against the Bengals. I only briefly looked at the schedules for other teams. Then you play the Giants on Thursday Night Football. So you're going to come off of this physical game against Denver. Likely going to be a lower scoring game just because of a defensive matchup. And it's a short week, you're playing on that MetLife turf, so that's just a bad combination to go up against. It's kind of a tweener game, because you play Denver, who is a playoff team, and you play a playoff team the next week, so kind of an uneven kind of thing there where, you worry about overlooking the Giants, or underestimating the Giants. But you get through this game, you're going to have a little mini-bye, you get ready for the next game, which is you go to the Vikings. So this is your first back-to-back road stretch. So you take on the Vikings. So you do have a mini-bye coming into this game. The Vikings are coming off of a bye week because they're actually in Europe the 2 weeks before. They play the Steelers and Browns in Ireland and in the UK. So they're gonna fly back. They're gonna have a week to recuperate. So both teams are coming into this game relatively fresh. And the Vikings were a team I was interested to see when we play them because of J.J. McCarthy. He's never taken a single regular season snap, and he's essentially still a rookie. So, are you getting a rookie quarterback earlier in the season or later in the season? There's a difference playing rookies early than late. You're getting him towards the middle, but the earlier half of the season, still very little experience under his belt at this point, so that might be an advantage. And will this Vikings team look like what they were last year? Will they be the 14-3 NFC juggernaut they were last year, or are they going to be something they're a little more down to earth because of inexperience at the quarterback position? So that'll be something to see. Then you get the Giants. So this will be the second time in 3 weeks you face the Giants. You get them right before the bye week, and you just can't overlook that team. You can't be looking ahead to the bye week. You remember last year, how much of a relief the bye week was and how much the team needed it. So you just can't overlook that. Finish this game on a high, make it a tone setter, go into the bye week feeling good, have a good record. Then you have your bye week, of course. You get your week off, you get to relax, get to do what you need to do. I like when the bye week's in the middle of the season. It kind of divides the season in half, so you get your first 8 games early, then you have your last 9 later. So it splits the season in half, so it's not like last year where your bye week's a month earlier. And then it's like you have this very short beginning of the season, and then you have this very, very long period of time. So if you have injuries, it gives you a chance to heal up before the second half stretch. And the second half, things do go up a notch, because really these next 4 games is, in my opinion, your toughest stretch. Not necessarily based on opponent, more so based on the timing. Because you come off your bye week, you have a Monday night game, and then you have a Sunday night football game, and then you play another Sunday game, and then you play on Friday. So, a lot of games in a short period of time. So, you come off of your bye week, you play the Packers, Monday Night Football. This is going to be kind of a cold game. This was a game I was interested because, again, you're playing in Lambeau. It's going to be late. It's not going to be uber cold. It probably won't be snowy, so it's not too bad. But you're coming off of your bye week, so you're going to have an opportunity to prepare for this game. I think the Packers have a game the week before. So that's really my notes on this matchup so far. Obviously, it's a playoff rematch from last year, so it'll be interesting to see Love versus Hurts again. Then on a short week, you play the Lions on Sunday Night Football. Now, the Lions do get an extra day of prep, but they're coming off of a game against Washington, and if you remember that playoff matchup last year against Washington, it was a pretty tough game for Detroit. So even with the extra day of prep, they are coming off of a pretty tough game. But this is going to be a tough matchup. This is a matchup I think a lot of people are waiting to see, because this is arguably the 2 best teams in the NFC going head to head. It's going to be in Philly. It's going to be an exciting game to watch. And then the next week you go play Dallas. Now, Dallas is going to be on a short week coming into this game, and they also play Thanksgiving against the Chiefs. So they're kind of in a little bit of a spot here in the schedule. And Dallas has been a tougher place for Philly to play in recent years. Now, they won there last year. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Again, at this point, this could be a big division matchup. So, this could be something that helps decide who wins the division. This is probably one of the first of those games that I think is really going to dictate that. And then on Black Friday, you play the Bears. So, it's going to be a short week. You're taking on Caleb Williams, Ben Johnson, in Philly. So at this point, Ben Johnson, new head coach, he's going to be a little bit more entrenched with playing with the Bears. He's going to know Caleb better, so you're going to get probably one of the better versions of the Bears that they'll have. But again, you're coming on a short week, obviously. I expect the Eagles to wear all black in this game. They better. Really not much else to say about it. But then you get another one of these mini buys. So you kind of had that stretch where you have a lot of games in close proximity. Now you get a mini buy, and you play Monday Night Football against the Chargers. This is your 4th primetime game in 5 weeks. So, a lot of night games, not a lot of 1 o'clock games. You're in Los Angeles, which, Eagles fans typically take over that stadium, so that's good. This game's going to be interesting. There's been a lot of debates between Jalen Hurts and Justin Herbert this offseason, so it'll be fun to see the 2 of them match up against each other again and see what that game looks like. Next week, after that, we'll get the Raiders. This is the only 1 p.m. game in the second half of the season. Everything else is night games and 425s, and everything else is late. So this is the only one that is confirmed for the second half of the season. Not a ton here. Obviously, you got Geno, and Pete Carroll will be fairly established at this point, so the Raiders will probably be in their best form at this point if they're a good team. We get to see Gentry versus Saquon, 2 people that are highly compared, kind of like you had the best college running back last year, facing the best NFL running back last year, so that's going to be fun. So some mild intrigue there. And then week 16, you play a Saturday, so you get a short week. Here, you get another 6-day prep week to play the Commanders in Washington. So this is the first time you play Washington all year. This could be your division deciding game here. If Commanders are in the running, if Philly's in the running, if Dallas is in the running, this is going to be one of those games that's really going to dictate who wins the division. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And this is the game I think the Eagles get the worst break on in terms of the scheduling and the timing, is that now you play a Saturday, you get a little extra time coming into this game because you play on a Sunday. You play the Bills. It's a big game later on in the season, but it's going to be cold. It's probably gonna be snowy. This game, the Packers game in Tampa, were the 3 games I was the most curious to see when the Eagles would play them, knowing that these were the games where the environment, the weather, were going to be the biggest factors. And you're going to be in Buffalo when it's cold and snowy. So we remember that snow game last year. Hopefully the Eagles take what they learned in the Rams game and apply it to the Bills game, because it's a whole different level in Buffalo. So it'll be very interesting to see what that game's like. Seeing Jalen and Josh Allen go at it again will be fun as well. And finally, we come to Week 18, where the Eagles will face the Commanders. We don't know what time, because obviously Week 18 games are they are flexible. They can be scheduled whenever. But this could be the season finale, meaning that final Sunday night game at the end of the year. If there's significant playoff and division aspirations in that game, it could even just be a very simple game. My expectation is this will probably be a somewhat important game. I don't think it'll be a situation where you're going to be resting starters coming into it, knowing that you're especially coming off of the Bills game, stuff like that. But that is your schedule, and I honestly think it's a fairly favorable schedule. Like, there's aspects of it I don't like, but there's aspects I do like. Again, I really think those mini buys are going to come in handy. So if a player gets nicked in the game, gives them a little extra time to heal up, gives guys a little extra time throughout. So there's a lot of rest opportunities. For example, going into Week 2, you rest a little bit. Going into Week 7, you have a little bit of rest. Going into Week 10, you have a bye week, so there's rest. Going into Week 15, you have a little rest. So having that little extra time, because of all the extra primetime games and stuff like that you get, is going to be really good for this team. Anyways, this has been Bird Brain. Hope you guys enjoyed being nerdy today. Fly, Eagles, fly. See you around.